Alright, y'all know the drill. Let's see who we can piss off today by simply talking about the most well-respected tier list in the Honkai Star Rail community. We're here again at pridewin.gg. Come check this out for yourself. I highly encourage you to do so. I'll leave a link in the pinned comment and description below for you to do that. They do a lot more than just tier lists here. It's just people come here to check out the tier list whenever it does drop. And they just recently revamped the entire tier list, as you can see from here. There are some notes here that you can check out for what they did change. I know, some of that's kind of like nerdy or not important to some of you, but we can go ahead and take a look at that. For example, you have SP positive characters labeled underneath, like Jingli Yu. You can see it's probably hard to see on screen. I tried zooming in a little bit, but for some reason, it just doesn't make it look very good. But yeah, SP plus right here for Jingli Yu, SP minus for Dan Heng, just so that you guys are aware how skill point efficient they are. You can see some labeling going on here that wasn't necessarily there before. And you can see here, we have tier 0, tier 0.5, tier 1, tier 1.5, tier 2, tier 3, tier 4, tier 5. And I've been talking about this for like a little while now. The last, I think, 2 tier list videos I did. And I'm sure a lot of other people have been talking about this too. I'm pretty sure that, like, who else does these tier lists that I'm aware of? Gotcha Smack does these. I believe EO does these. And from what I believe I understand, EO knows people that help create this list. So here's EO's channel if you guys didn't know about it already. I like EO. I think he's really cool. Like his content. I think he's, a pretty knowledgeable person about the game. Great dude. I don't want to glaze too much, you know what I mean? But the guy's a great dude, so go check him out. I'll at him, link him in the pinned comment as well, because I believe he may have been, trying to kind of badger them to change the tier list because it did need a change. So I don't know if EO was involved in that or not, you know what I mean? Maybe I should try to get in contact with him and see what's up. But anyways, I want to just shout him out just in case he did have something to do with that. I'm sure he probably did to some degree. And I'm sure that Pridewin has seen some of these other tier list videos like mine, for example, that have been talking about trying to change this for a while because the upper limits of this tier list for a while were pretty crowded. And by making this extra tier, things have been basically improved in order to reflect the game a lot better. Like the meta is truly reflected a lot better here. So I want to praise them and glaze them for that. We'll talk about the placements of some of these characters in just a second here. You can see that Robin's placed here at tier 0.5. But as much as I want to glaze them for this, I have to say there's some problems with the list. So I want to glaze them for having made the list a lot better here, but we still have some major problems with the list, and it's not with the structure of the list, it's with the placement of some of these characters. I have been saying for a very long time, and I feel like a lot of other trustworthy content creators have been saying it as well. Support characters are the best characters in the entire game, period. This is not something you could really argue, because even a character like Misha is sitting here next to Argenti. I don't really necessarily feel like they're on the same tier with each other. I feel like Argenti is a bit better, but maybe he's not quite as good as Blade. You know what I mean? I don't test them back to back to kind of find out which is better, to be honest. So maybe that's a decent placement, but the reason why a character like Misha can sit here next to Serval and Argenti is not because Misha's good. It's because you compare them with any of these super duper top tier supports and make basically any DPS character good. The best characters in the game are supports. In fact, you see all these sustainability characters like Aventurine, Fushuan, Huohuo. You don't even need them if your account is powerful enough. You could run 0 sustain because you could just run a bunch of super high-powered supports, power up any DPS, and clear the content that way. And this is definitely viable, and it always clears faster in general than using a sustain on the team because you get an extra buffer. This means, the more you talk about this, the more you actually lay down the facts. Support characters are simply the best characters in the entire game. Which is a character like Ron Mei, who's universally good, who can buff, any character in the entire game basically because she has a really solid damage buff. Damage buffs are really good because anybody can use them. A character like Robin, for example, has a really, really good attack buff attached to her ultimate. But characters like Blade, for example, aren't going to be able to benefit from that properly because he scales with HP. But a character like Ron Mei, who scales with damage, is really, really strong. So what I'm yapping a whole lot here, but I'm basically trying to say, I do not agree with Ron Mei and Sparkle being in tier 0.5. They're the 2 best characters in the entire game. How the hell are you going to put them below Aventurine and Fushuan? Are you kidding me? I don't know. So you know, I don't know what the heck they smoking over there at Pride Win. You know what I mean? I wanted to glaze them at the beginning and praise them for the things that I see that are good, but I have to point out the flaw. The flaw here is that some of these characters are just not placed in a very good spot. And what the hell is Ting Yun doing down here? Are you kidding me? Ron May should be up here. Sparkle should be up here. I personally feel like Ting Yun should be up there as well, but I understand why some people don't feel the value of a Ting Yun. I feel if you're a truly sweaty, you know, proper, you know, prepared player, Ting Yun is the most common character to see in most zero cycles up to this point. It's just facts, right? No, yeah, sure, this tier list shouldn't be based off of how you can zero cycle, but I mean, dude, she brings so much value to the table. Ting Yun has yet to be power crept. You know what I mean? The energy she buff she gives is better than Quo. The skill point efficiency is basically the best in the entire game. Like, it's just insane. It's insane. Like I know Sparkle can give you skill points, but like you don't even need to be given skill points if you're not even really using them with Ting Yun. And because you might have a skill point efficient team, you can just blast, bam, her skill, get her ult up faster, buff different characters. And her buff from her ult can be active on 2 characters at once. If you're running a slower character like Clara, for example, you actually can sometimes give the buff from Ting Yun to Clara, and before Clara's ult runs out, you can actually potentially get the energy back up and buff another character, such as Aventurine, who is the sustainability character for a Clara team. So you could have 2 really solid damage sources on your team buffed at the same time with her ult, because yes, Ting Yun's skill is locked to 1 character, but her ult is not. Okay, so I just wanted to point that out, okay? And let's go ahead and talk about Robin's placement. Before I complain about the fact that Pella is down here, are you kidding me? What the fuck is this? What in the hell is this slander and lies? What is going on? Anyways, I said I'll do that in a minute. Let's talk about Robin. That's why we're really here. Robin at tier 0.5, I actually agree with that. Personally, I agree with that. I think Ron May should be up here. Sparkle should be up here, a tier above. And then Robin and Ting Yun should be here. I'll take a step back and say, okay, Ting Yun don't need to be up here at tier 0. I'll accept that. But dude, what the heck is going on here? Ting Yun is better than Bronya and Silverwolf. These are facts. It's just true, right? I'm happy that they bumped her up above these 2. But what needs to happen is all of these supports need to get bumped up, basically. Every single support needs to get bumped up a tier, is the way I feel about it. Ron May at 1 above, Sparkle 1 up, leave Robin where she is. That's fine. I agree with that. I fully agree with that. That's actually a good placement, okay? You know what I mean? I don't want to bash on Pride Win too much, because they do a good job, okay? They do a good job, but we need to point out flaws when they exist, okay? I'm not a person that's going to be liked by everybody, because if there's a problem, I'm going to point it out. You know what I mean? I'm just gonna do it. If there's a problem, I'll point it out. So yeah, I'm cool with that. Ting Yun needs to get bumped up to where Robin is. Ron May, Sparkle bumped up as well. Bronya, Silverwolf, because the empty slot will be there when the void is there when Ting Yun goes up. You bump these 2 up as well. But I'd actually only bump up. I'm okay with bumping up Bronya and Silverwolf, but Pela needs to be up there with them. If you're gonna have Silverwolf on a tier, you need to have Pela on that same tier or higher. These are simply facts. Okay? We see Gallagher up here at 1.5. And yeah, he was underrated at the start, and he's getting more, you know what I mean, appreciation now because of the niche teams he's good on. He's really good on break teams, and he's really, really good with like Acheron, for example. You know what I mean? Sure, there's, you know, the preservation characters that are better with Acheron, but dude, Gallagher's incredibly strong with Acheron, and he's basically the only sustainability character for breaks. That gives him something that's really, really good. But when you look at like characters like Pela, who also have similar value to that, because she's incredibly strong on a team like with Dr. Ratio. Some people are confused and they think that Silverwolf's better. No. Dude, Pela's ult will actually build up the stacks way faster, and it's on everybody. Because once you defeat an enemy with Ratio while you have Silverwolf on the team, is that enough? Is that going to be enough? Because are there enough debuffs on the field for that to actually matter after he defeats the enemy that he hits? And then there's another enemy after. Is that enemy going to be debuffed? Because Silverwolf is single target. Will she have had a chance to debuff all the enemies? That's how it's a bit uncertain. Pela does this automatically with her ult. She just hits everybody, right? And with Acheron, bro, this is the 4-star budget, but at the same time, incredibly, like, practically secret 5-star. Pela and Ting Yun are 5 stars in disguise. They just are. They're as powerful as 5 stars. And people need to start recognizing that more. I don't know why Pela's getting bumped down here. As the game has progressed on, Pela has gotten better, not worse. This makes no sense to me whatsoever. On a defense down team, even Jing Liu. With Jing Liu's signature light cone, she has defense ignore. So you could run Quantum Gear on her, which has defense ignore also. Then you could run characters like Pela, which has defense shred. You synergize these things enough times in a row, and all of a sudden, Jing Liu is dealing true damage. So it doesn't matter if the enemy's Ike weak or not. It doesn't even matter if they're quantum weak or not. You're just gonna hit them, and they're gonna take true damage. You can just blast through any enemy you want. It doesn't matter on a defense down team like that. So why on earth is Pela, somebody that has an AoE defense shred, all the way down here in tier 2? Makes no sense to me whatsoever. Shepard, personally, I think he needs to be up here in tier 1.5 with Gallagher. I'm okay with Gallagher being here. I'm glad he's actually getting the support, I don't know. I'm glad people are glazing him as much as he deserves. But I think Gepard deserves to be up here as well. Just because adventuring power crept him doesn't mean he should be 1, 2, 3, 4 tiers below. That don't make no sense to me personally. You know what I mean? Respectfully. Shout out to Pokey. But anyways, I think everything else is generally pretty okay. I don't want to nitpick too much. You know what I mean? Some of these are pretty good. I think Serval is like super duper underrated. I don't know why she's here. I think she needs to be up here with Blade, personally. Argenti, I do have Argenti, but I haven't playtested him enough. He's the one 5-star I haven't playtested like enough, because I have an E2 Clara, and E2 Clara is busted, bro. Absolutely busted. And she's literally the best physical type character in the game right now. Boot Hill is likely going to power creep her in Memory of Chaos. By the way, that's one thing to be aware of. Memory of Chaos changes, and so some of these placements are based on the current Memory of Chaos. But as I just said, defense down with a Jing Liu, so yeah, maybe there's not enough ice weakness, so maybe that's why Pela's down here. But I don't know, man. With the fact that you can just defense down everything and blast them with quantum gear, like the fact that that's always there just kind of means that they're always going to be good no matter what. So I just don't really know if I agree with that. So personally, that's just my feeling on that. So maybe, but at the same time, I don't know. Serval, I think, should be higher, personally. Argenti, there is physical weak right now, and there's 2 Memory of Chaoses active currently. So with one of them having physical weakness, I just don't see why Argenti's down here. It just doesn't make sense. Just because Clara is so much better doesn't mean I said Jing Yuan, didn't I? My bad. I don't see why Argenti needs to be down here just because Clara is so good. It just doesn't really make a lot of sense. I'm happy to see that they finally bumped down QQ and Sela. I still think they're good, but they're just not as good as someone like Ratio. They should. I'm glad they made this separation. I'm glad that they did that. And by the way, Clara being below Ratio, I'm okay with that actually, because there are some scenarios where if you're not getting hit enough by the enemies, you don't get the counterattack from Clara. There are some situations where, believe it or not, if you're too powerful, you might defeat the enemies too fast, and they're not hitting you enough. And then your power level goes down. It's a weird situation with Clara where she needs to get hit or she's not dealing enough damage. Because of that one factor, I understand why Ratio is above her. I'm okay with that. I'm pretty much okay with everything else here. You know what I mean? Poor Arlen down here, but I mean, like, his kit just, like, doesn't matter if you compare him with basically anybody and make it work. It doesn't change the fact that he kind of, like, he's just mid, bro. He's just mid. So yeah, I'm okay with everything else here. I think Himiko is the best character in tier 4. I think if you bump some of these characters up and create room, that Himiko should maybe come up. But again, I don't want to nitpick too much. So, you know what I mean? Let me know what you guys think. When Iphon being down here, I don't know if you guys know this or not, but on a DOT team where you have Black Swan's ultimate turns all of the Arcana stacks into every DOT type. Because of this, whenever she does that, Gwenifin turns into Kafka. What I mean by that is her kit is basically the same as Kafka's, but it's limited to fire DOTs. But when you pair her with Black Swan, all of the sudden she's able to detonate all of those Arcana stacks because they're now fire stacks too. Because of this, I feel like Gwenhyfen should get bumped up personally. Because, you know what I mean? The reason why Kafka Black Swan do so well is because of generally each other. They don't have to have each other. Like I just mentioned, you can have Black Swan and Gwenhyfen. But if you're gonna keep them like this high, I feel like that's a reason to give Gwenhyfen the bump. Why is Dan Heng still up here with Jing Liu, even though Jing Liu gives herself 50% crit rate? It's because Dan Heng now has Sparkle in the game, and that's somewhat niche. It requires another character for him to be at his peak. No, he's not bad. No, he's not bad. I'm still okay with him being up here, even without Sparkle. But some people kind of like overrate him to a degree because without Sparkle, he does get that extra power spike, right? And again, I'm not dissing Dan Heng. I'm just pointing out a reason why if you're gonna keep him up this high for so long and always value him because of the Sparkle Dan Heng synergy, why don't we also do the same thing for Gwenhyfen? It's just because people forget about her because people don't realize that tech even exists some of the time. So yeah. Well, I don't know if I necessarily agree with Welt being down here, but he has fallen off. He has that slow, which is really good, but he's usually best in a sub DPS scenario, but when he's in a sub DPS scenario, he requires too much skill points in order for him to work properly. And that's not very good. Like that part kind of sucks. You need the skill points for potentially your supports or for, you know, your main DPS. Usually in a sub DPS function, you kind of want to hit some basic attacks every once in a while, and Welt kind of wants to hit his skill most of the time. So I understand why he's down here. You know, I'm not a Welt main or anything like that. He can technically be run as a sustain and just slow everybody, kind of like Ron May can be run as a sustain, and you just like you take priority because of one of their effects rather than and the enemy can't hurt you if they're slowed. The enemy can't hurt you if their weakness broken. That's what makes Ron May the best sustain in the entire game, because he gives you a buff while the enemies are you know what I mean, weakness broken. The joke is that she's the best, you know, sustain in the whole game because it's true. When like a lot of times nowadays when you see a zero cycle or something like that, you're seeing Ron May or Ting Yun getting slotted in because of the utility that they provide. And if the enemies are, like I said, weakness broken, they can't attack. That's super powerful. So you don't often have to run a sustain on a team like that because of the power that Ron May brings. And that basically used to be used on a character like Welt. Welt used to be a damage sustain kind of a thing, where you slowed the enemies and they can't hurt you if they're slowed. So the same strategy was implemented onto Ron May, just in a different way. I think because that strat still technically exists, maybe he should be one tier above. Personal thoughts? I think that Shui Yi should probably be bumped up once, like one tier as well, because if you have her at E6, she gets a really, really big power spike, personally. Right? She gets a really, really good power spike, in my opinion. I think that she's really, really good at E6. And I feel like that's what she's being measured at, right? Yeah, E6 for MOC. Maybe it's just the current MOC. Maybe they'll bump her up eventually. You know, I'm not trying to nitpick too hard. But we did kind of deep dive this a little bit with a lot of these characters. So hopefully you guys appreciate it. And hopefully they end up changing this, updating this tier list in like the next couple of days or so to see if maybe they can better reflect like the way the meta truly should be. Like Ron May, Sparkle being up here. You know what I mean? I want to see that. If there's anything that they do about this tier list to kind of make it improved, I want to see Ron May Sparkle get bumped up a tier at least. Okay? I'll still complain about the Ting Yun situation and the Pela situation, but you know what I mean? You know what I mean? We take what we can get, okay? One step in the right direction is at least some form of an improvement, all right? Anyways, let me know if you guys are pulling Robin, if you feel the value of her. She's super duper busted with follow-up teams. She's not as good as Ron May Sparkle for the things that Ron May and Sparkle are that good for. You know what I mean? Like Ron May has like specialist type of abilities. She excels in break teams and certain other teams like DOT, etc., etc. And Sparkle is like incredibly powerful because sometimes you don't need your whole entire team to get the action advance forward from Robin. Sometimes you only need your main DPS to be the one that's getting the power and the action advance forward. And in that case, Sparkle's buffs are better than they're better than Robin's. I keep trying to say Firefly, and that's just wrong. But yeah, Sparkle for the things that Sparkle and Ron May are good for, their ceiling is higher for certain teams, and although Robin is kind of like a jack of all trades, and she is incredibly strong, don't get it twisted. She is incredibly strong on basically any team. It's unfortunately for her, just she doesn't quite hit the skill ceiling of Ron-Mei and Sparkle, unless she's on a follow-up team. So because the spread is better for Ron-Mei and Sparkle, that's just my opinion. That they deserve to be just a little bit above Robin at this time. Anyways, I'm yapping way too much in this video. If you guys found this helpful or informative in any way, shape, or form, consider leaving a like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.